Hello, happy March. It is springtime and the blue bonnets are out in Austin, Texas, and the mountain laurel. If you've never smelled them, they smell like a sweet candy floral smell. It's delicious. It's very potent and they don't stick around for long. So if you haven't smelled them, get out there and smell those mountain laurels because they're going to be gone in about a week or so. For me, my backyard, I have my fig just blossomed, doing really well. My Carolina jasmine, another vine. Lots of native Texas plants are thriving. My rose bushes, they're just unstoppable. I don't know. I'm not even caring for them and they're thriving. And a blackberry bush. It's exciting. So I'm happy to, I had a lot of things die too, I will say. My lemons are all dead. They died. And my amethyst wisteria died as well. I wasn't here for the freeze, so and nothing survived. It was yeah, it's fun. It's fun. But anyway, I was in Las Vegas last week for the Keller Williams National Conference. They are the largest brokerage in the world. They are in 27 countries, and they had 19,000 agents in attendance. And we broke out into sessions and discussed things and connected with each other. We also had some keynote speakers, two of which I took some really good notes and I'm offering to share those with you. If you want, just email me, how about March newsletter notes, just the subject line, March newsletter notes, and my assistant will send them to you. Tony Robbins was one of them. And I've never seen him in person. I've never read his books or listened to his podcasts, but it was amazing. It was very impactful. One of the things he talked about with us was what you focus on is your energy. And that was impactful for me. Also, he said, you don't experience life, you experience what you focus on. That is so, so true. And he also talked about seasons of life, how when you're 0 to 21 years, it's spring. This is all about creation. You're protected, you're growing, you are absorbing and you're learning. So that's spring. And then summer is 22 to 42 years old. This is when you test what is learned, decide what you will value, time for relationships, kids, or growing your business, family. And this is actually, interestingly enough, the most unhappiest time of your life. That's the season I'm in. I could just say that it's definitely, yeah, from 22 till now I'm 39, I'll be 40 next month. It's a good time. It's a time when you reflect a lot on the years prior and you're like, cringe. Why was I that way? Why did I act that way? You're just learning and growing all the time. Failing forward. So great. And you're just doing a lot as well, right? Especially parents. I don't know how, you do life because that's a lot. It's a lot. And then 43 to 63 is fall. You're reaping the benefits. It's the time of power. You're impactful. You're taking charge, unwinding some of those relationships that maybe don't serve you anymore and focusing on career. So if you're 43 to 63, you're in fall. I think that's a nicer season of life. And then 64 onward is winter. This is going to be my favorite season. This is where you're in leadership, you're mentoring, and you're slowing down. Isn't that nice? That sounds nice. And why I think he brought it up was because every season of life has its own things. So, think of the bigger picture. Appreciate that this is a season of life you're in. You're not going to be in it forever. You're going to grow up. You're going to go into the fall or the winter, and just perspective. Anyway, you can read all about it in my notes. The second keynote speaker that I took notes on for you is Mel Robbins. They're not related. They just have the same last name. I know a lot of people wonder if that. I had to Google it too. And she started the speech with, "This is the year I ... And she said, hey, it's the beginning of the year. You got to know what you want out of the year. I mean, no one else is going to tell you what you want. No one else is going to tell you what you need to do. You have to decide. So 101 life hack, just know what you want. This is the year I will travel. I will get strong. I will get a dog. I highly recommend that last one. And one of the ways you can hack it is the 5-second rule. She wrote a book on it. She has a podcast. This is what she's known for. I'm going to share with you. I never heard of it, but it's basically, it's counting down to 1. So from 5, going 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you do the thing. So it's part of the brain is like when you count down to like, okay, I'm going to count down to do this thing that I kind of don't want to do, but I know I should. If I count down to do it, you will do it. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you do it. Whether you're looking at your tennis shoes going, oh, I should go to the gym. If you sit there, even for a moment, and you don't do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you go, you'll analyze it. You'll think it through, and you won't do it. You'll do exactly what you haven't been doing all of this time, and you'll get the same results you've always had, which is probably not the results you want if you're still wanting to get those results. If that makes sense. So that's the 5-second rule. So those 2 keynote speakers were amazing. And if you want those notes, let me know. And then we also went over the market of 2023 and analyzed all the statistics. And that's what I'm going to jump into next. I'm just going to show you the slides and talk you through it. I would love to connect with you and hear what you think. Get some feedback. But I'm going to share that with you now. So let's go. Home sales, they are down. In 2020, we had this mobility experience for the first time ever. Historically low interest rates where you could live anywhere and afford anything, which took us to a place we hadn't been before, right? But now it's the opposite effect. Low mobility and people are locked into low interest rates because everyone refinanced and 40% of homeowners own their home outright. So we have a lot of people staying put. Let's go on a journey. If you start with the pink, it starts off with a high annual sales rate, and then it just slowly decreases in 2022. Then it evens out in last year, 2023. And this is what a real estate recession looks like. So the green shows you our sales, and they were down. They were consistently down. They didn't plummet, so it's not dire. It's not the worst real estate recession ever, but it is slower. Home prices. So looking at this chart right now, home prices are 9.3% above the trend line. And back in 2006, it was 24% above the trend line. And then we had the recession. So right now we can see our prices are not outrageously high, but if we were to get back down to the trend line, it would mean we'd have to be at 0% home price increase for 4 to 6 years. And here's looking at annual appreciation. We didn't see that much appreciation in the last 2 years, obviously, but we had a very low inventory and also low demand. Again, the low mobility, people staying put, and the cost of money, interest rates being high. So last 2 years, not a lot of appreciation, which is good because it helps us get back to that home price trend line, right? So this is a fun chart. If you're a history buff, you might like it. All the reasons our market has fluctuated over the years. So you know what they say, what comes up must come down and vice versa. And they continue to do this to adjust to affordability. So let's look at 1982. This debt was caused by the Fed. In 1991, this was caused by the banking crisis. In 2009, it was caused by the financial community. And the current one, it's caused by the Fed. So most likely, it's either going to be the government or the banking community that's going to be the culprit that causes a recession. Right now, we're not in a recession. The Fed wants us to come right up on the border of a recession, but our economy right now is not in a recession, and real estate is. So it's not that they want real estate to be in a recession. It's just that they don't want the real estate market to crash like in 2009. Because that's the bulk of a lot of the population's wealth. So they're keeping the real estate market from crashing, and they're keeping our economy out of a recession. Speaking of a crash, we already receded. This slide is in the trillions. If you go to the purple line in 2021, we did 2.83 trillion in market volume. And then it did decrease. And then, of course, last year, it was only at about 2 trillion. However, at 2 trillion, it's still the third best volume year in history. So we did still do a lot in real estate sales. Okay, inventory. And again, this is national data. It is not Austin, it's national. But inventory, it's unprecedented when you look at what's happened. Inventory is unbelievably low. People don't want to let go of their low interest rates. They all refinanced. So they're not selling, they're not going anywhere. There's barely any sellers. But when there is a seller, they're motivated. And when they're motivated and there are some buyers out there, deals are happening. And there are a lot of people who want to buy a house. It's just a question of affordability and the cost of money. Speaking of the cost of money, mortgage rates are really the culprit here. In 2023, the average rates were 6.81%, and today they're around 7%. The historical trend is 7.7% within the last 50 years and 6% within the last 30 years. It's not that expensive historically, if you know the statistics. But the solution is, you have all these people stuck in low interest rate homes. The solution is to not wait for mortgage rates to come down, but instead move now while there's less competition. And you can keep your home rented out. You can offer seller financing. You could take a loan on your house to help leverage the difference in the interest rates. There's a lot of things you can do if you get creative. There's a lot of solutions. If you want to move, you can. There's a way. But just, reach out to me. We can come up with a creative plan. And here's just a fun chart looking at the month by month mortgage rates. Oh my gosh, in 2020, they're down to 2.6. And that's basically just free. And then 3%. And then they went all the way up to 5 in 2022. Then to 7 in 2023. Then they dipped back down and then they went back up. I'm watching this and I'm looking at all my clients because I remember who got what. And the lower the interest rate, the harder it was to get the house. It was insane. I mean, people were making so many offers and offering over ask. And now they're so high. I mean, we're getting money off the price. We're getting concessions. We're getting money back to buy down points. It's really nice being a home buyer in this environment where it's, a higher interest rate rather than the low interest rate. I'd be happy around a 5.5. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I think 5.5 is a pretty decent interest rate. I feel like at 5.5, we wouldn't be too buyer heavy. And I think some of the sellers who are holding out, I think they'd come out. It wouldn't get too hectic. It's just my opinion. Someone tell Paul will. Treasury spread. This is the difference between the yields or earnings of two different bonds, the 10-year Treasury and the 2-year Treasury. This gives the financial market a baseline of risk, and it's where they get the mortgage rate from. So they take the Treasury bill, wherever that's set at, then they add a risk premium on top of that for the risk of the 30-year mortgage. So there's two types of risk. There's the risk you don't pay your loan for the bank, and then there's the risk you refinance too soon and the banks don't make their money. So the Treasury spread is at 2.85%, which is the highest it's been in the last 30 years, and it's said to be a temporary phenomenon. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to make the 30-year mortgage attractive. So just remember that what this means is when things calm down and there is less risk of a recession, you will see mortgage rates drop a point without the Fed even monkeying with it. So just FYI, that's where the Treasury spread comes into play. All right. So this one's really interesting for me personally. I've never really thought about it this way. I used to think, because people always said, oh, well, back in the 1980s, the interest rates were 18%. And I'm like, yeah, but the houses were like $20,000. So please stop talking to me about it. But the truth is like you have to also calculate the cost of living and their wages. So actually, buying a home in the 1980s was 49% of their income. And today it's at 32% of our income. And the historical average would be 27% of our income. And then within the last 20 years, it'd be 20% of our income. So wouldn't that be great if it was 20% of our income? So really what this is telling me, a millennial, is I need to stop spending money
And I'm guilty of it. I think with social media, we're so exposed to ways to enjoy life, ways to live our best life. And we're so tempted. We're like, well, I'm gonna go buy that trip. I'm gonna go do this thing. I'm gonna go wear these clothes. I'm gonna spend. I'm gonna renovate my house. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. And at the end of the day, we could be saving our money and affording to buy a home. So right now, even though everyone's saying affordability is a factor and we can't afford to buy a home, technically we can. Technically, it's possible. It's just we need to stop spending money on other stuff. We need to prioritize buying a home, owning a home ownership, and not prioritize spending the money. Speaking of spending the money, see how this flows? So, GDP is the spending of the money. The economy does well if people are spending money, right? So, on an annualized basis, the 2 years has it's come back down. What they want to see is 2%. If you see a 3, 4, 5%, that's huge. And in 2021, it was at 5.8%. Our economy was on fire. The last 2 years, we're back where we want to be, and that's really good, and it has to do with the cost of money. So if we look at the last 2 quarters, everyone is spending again, it's back in the 4%, 3%. And if we had GDP for 1%, it would be better for real estate. Not great for our economy because it means people aren't spending money, meaning maybe people lost their jobs and we're in a recession. So it's not good for the economy, would be good for real estate. So if people would, again, just start saving your money and not spending, it could have a positive effect on real estate. So here's a look at the GDP quarterly. Again, it went down to the 2% and then it bumped back up the last quarters of 2023. So we will see what our economy does this year. It's an election year. Time will tell. Okay, this one's my favorites. My favorite slide. So the yellow line represents existing home sales, and the purple line represents GDP growth. So if you look at the yellow line at 1994, it slopes down to 1996, and then shortly after, the purple line follows as well. And then into 1998 to 2000, real estate goes down, and then in 2000 to 2001. GDP goes down. Then we have '04 to '07 real estate crashes. And then '04 to '09 GDP growth slowly declines. But then in 2007 to 2009, real estate goes up. And then in 2009 to 2011, GDP goes up. So real estate seems to be the leader here, the indicator, if you will. I've heard that before. I'm sure you have as well. And so if we watch what happens in real estate, we can kind of track what's going on in the economy. So bringing us to today in 2021, home sales dropped to 2022, 2023, then they evened out. Now look what the economy did. It also dropped in 2021, but it also evened out. So that's where we're at today. We're not in a recession. Real estate is a lot slower, but it's consistently slower. So we can expect, or we know what to expect. And that's a comfort. I know that this year will be a lot like last year. And I think that's a comfort to some sellers and buyers. Like, all right, it's safe to transact out there. It's not going to be, 20 offers on my home. And the buyer's like, yeah, I'm going to have a high interest rate, but at least I'm getting a good deal. I don't have to compete because maybe I don't have a lot of cash in my pocket to like pay overprice. So this is good for some buyers. Just get a house and then refinance when rates go down, or at least leverage some closing costs and buy down the rate. So I don't think we're in a bad place. That's why I like this slide. All right, unemployment. So 3.6% is an all-time low, and in the last 3 months, it is creeping up. So just know anything below 6% is healthy. Anything above is a problem. So right now we're so far below that it's not great. If we got to like 4.5, that would slow down spending, slow down GDP. But think about this. We're paying more for people because it's competitive, and thus the cost of everything goes up. So you have to look harder and pay more when everyone's employed. It's not great. Here's this chart. I love how 2020 had a lot of unemployment, and then that all ended when the pandemic ended. And I have that song in my head. Here we go again on my own. Da-na-na. I just wish it applied to the slide. It doesn't. But I thought I'd sing for you while you check it out. We're really diving into the details of the unemployment, so you can really zone in here. So 2021, it started at 6.3, again, coming down from the pandemic. And then it just was like everyone was back in business, hiring and at full force, full speed ahead. And we're just like lingering around the threes, which is really low. All right, so this chart kind of makes me angry. It's inflation. So during the pandemic, a lot of people got pandemic money and then they were just sitting at home, not spending money. And once the pandemic ended, everyone wanted to get out and spend their money on the things that they had missed all this time. So prices went up. I mean, demand was super high. And, prices go up like rockets, but then they come down like feathers. So really, prices could have come down, but they didn't. And why are you going to decrease your price? And the GDP, right? The people are still out there spending lots of money. So until people stop spending money, prices aren't going to come down because the demand is still there. Anyway, it's basically greedflation when they raise prices, but they don't need to, and they keep them high and they don't need to. So this is a little annoying. And this is one of my favorite charts. I'm a visual person, so I love charts. But yeah, let's look at what has increased in the cost, and let's look at what's very cheap to buy: TVs, toys, computer software, cell phones, clothing, household furnishings, new cars. Those are all affordable. Housing's at 88.8%. So that's actually not at the top. In fact, what's at the top, what inflated the most was hospital services, probably because of the pandemic. If you think about what hell they went through, I'm sure that they needed to up their price because the value of their services went up. And I think a lot of nurses left the field. I don't have the statistics on that, but I feel like that's the sense from just the kind of stuff they had to deal with. It was too much, really. So that's probably why. I don't know why. I'm not a hospital service expert, but that went up by 238%. So don't get sick anytime soon. College tuition and fees also went up. College textbooks, medical care services, child care, also the pandemic, that probably took a hit. And food and beverages. Oh, my dog needs to go out. Well, that's about it for this slide anyway. Distressed sales are at an all-time low. They have been for the last 8 years or so, which is why when some of you who are investors ask me to find new foreclosures and short sales, I mean, they're pretty much non-existent because there's so much equity in people's homes. It's not that easy to be in a foreclosure. You could just list it and then avoid foreclosure, right? Underwater homes. So I think this is proof that the financial community reined in their regulations for, approving home buyers and vetting them and just making sure they weren't overlending. We corrected that problem. I think this graph is funny because they didn't show us prior to 2007. But yes, after 2007, they tightened up credit conditions to correct their huge mistake of letting just anyone and their mother get a mortgage. Anyway, when we talk about loosening and tightening, we're talking about the lender looking at, the debt to income ratio, looking at their credit scores, their collateral, credit history, the factors of the factoring in the conditions of the market. And so in 2020, obviously they tightened those credit conditions all the way up because there was so much going on, so much risk. And then it went back down where they're like, oh, everything's fine. And now you can see they're starting to tighten as well, just because they're kind of like, oh, real estate is in a recession. The economy is close to recession. We're just going to tighten things up and make sure that on our end, we're not the ones making a mistake here. So I don't think that's a bad thing to see. I mean, it just means that things look a little risky, but at least they're paying attention. This is the last slide. You made it. And for that, I am going to show you what I look like when I'm recording this because it's really early in the morning and that's the time I have to do this stuff. It takes forever. And I hope you liked it. If there's anything you didn't understand, or of course you understood it, you're super intelligent and you understood, of course. But if you want to talk about something more in depth, contact me. That's what I'm here for. And so last slide. All right. Economic risks for 2024, because we don't know what could happen this year. we think it's going to be a lot like last year, but here are the things that might come into play that could change what we experience in real estate and in our economy. So ineffectual governance. It is an election year. Our country's divided. Hopefully we can come together and our government will work. What can I say? Global conflicts. Of course, we have the Ukrainian war as a perfect example that affects supply chain, and it also spilled into a NATO country, which then involves us. So global conflicts, political and direct. Financial system risks stemming from commercial real estate. I'm not sure exactly what's going on there, but I'm told that that they are aware of it, and that's the best thing because then they can track it and then they're not being caught by surprise. All right, natural disasters, we all know what those are. Last year we had a lot of things happen, floods, fires, you name it, we had it. So hopefully this year, I don't know. Hopefully this year the planet doesn't hate us. Okay. Well, thank you again for listening to this. This is it. My name's Sammy Midler, and I'm an Austin, Texas realtor. I love what I do. This was so fun. It took a lot of time though. I hope it was helpful. Um, it's so long. It's so long. Like every algorithm out there is like, don't do long videos. And I'm like, no, let me spend an hour talking about all this stuff. It's fine. It's fine. Okay. You have a great day. Thanks for tuning in. And I'll do one of these again in August.